Right, hey guys. This is like probably our first tutorial video you're gonna see. We're gonna experiment a bit with tutorial videos to see if it helps our understanding. And this is the first one. It's about solving equations. And the reason I'm going with a tutorial video is because I think it's such an important foundation for you guys to make sure you're solid with, so that we can build on this skill as we go through some of these algebra topics. So the first thing is, this is what we did last class, which was called substitution, where you're given something like 3 times a, and you're substituting in a number for a. In this case, let's say it's 7. 3 times a is going to be 3 times 7, which is 21. Okay, so this is substitution. This is the first kind of stage in algebra. The next stage is to say, well, what if I gave you this thing here? This is called an equation because we have an equal sign now. So the second we have an equal sign, we change it to be something called an equation. And instead of saying substitute 7 in here, we're going to say, what is a equal to? So the missing thing that we're looking for is what needs to go in the position of the letter A. So 3 times a blank equals 21. And we're going to go through some strategies on how to solve something like this. Okay, so we're kind of working backwards from the substitution that we did before. All right, so solving equations is your title, and this is the kind of format we're going to follow now, using equations. So these are 4 examples we're going to work through. Each of them is involving an equation, because they all have an equal sign, and each one involves a different operation. Operations are adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Okay, so the last one deals with division, this one deals with multiplication, subtraction, and addition. All right, to show you all of the different types of equations we're going to be working with. Okay, these are called one-step equations because we only need to do one thing to solve the problem. And the key is that we're going to work backwards when we're solving them. All right, so I'm going to work through these 4 examples in the video, and then I want you to follow along. And then I'll give you some practice questions at the end. Okay? So these are the steps that we're going to work through. The first one is to identify the operation. Is it addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? So adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. You need to identify which one we're using in the question, and then you're going to write the opposite operation on both sides of the equation. So the opposite of addition is subtraction, and the opposite of subtraction is addition. So these two are opposites of each other. And same here, the multiplication and division are opposites of each other. Okay, hopefully you know that. And then we're going to do a calculation to solve the final problem. Okay, so I'll keep coming back to these as we work through these. So in this first one, we have a, some number, plus 12 gives me 18. Maybe it's easy for you to see right away what this letter needs to be, what number needs to go here. But as we get bigger and harder numbers, it's going to be more difficult. So let's follow the steps. First, we have to identify the operation. What's the operation that we're using in this example? Well, it's addition. Okay, the operation is here, showing us that we're adding 12 to this number. All right, so we're using addition. The opposite of addition is subtraction. Okay, so we need to write the opposite operation on both sides. So we're going to subtract on both sides. I prefer to write it below like this. And instead of adding 12, we're going to subtract 12. That's what I mean by write the opposite on each side. Okay, so if we subtract 12 in this situation, adding 12 and subtracting 12 creates this perfect situation where we cancel out each one, because 12 take away 12 is 0. All we're left with, the only thing we have remaining on this side is the letter A. But on the right-hand side here, the far side of the equal sign, we have to do this calculation. That's the third step in our procedure here is to make the calculation. So 18 take away 12 is 6. And we can check to see if that would have worked in the original one here, the blue one. 6 plus 12 is 18 for sure, so it works. Okay, so that's the first example. In the next example, we have subtraction. So our operation that we're using is subtraction, and we have to write the opposite on both sides. So instead of putting minus 6, we have to write the opposite and we put plus 6. But we have to do that on both sides. Okay? When we do minus 6 and plus 6, they cancel out to become 0. And we need to work out this calculation here. 20 plus 6 is 26. We can go back to the start and check 26 take away 6 is indeed 20. Okay? The third example, okay, we need to start by identifying what operation we're using and then write the opposite operation on both sides. Okay, so in this situation, we are actually using multiplication because there's a multiplication between the 7 and the W. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we could write here, divide by 7. But we have to do that on both sides. Okay, 7 divided by 7 doesn't give us 0. This is an important thing to remember, but 7 divided by 7 gives us 1. And when we have 1 W, that's the perfect situation for us in this type of question. We want to know what does 1 W equal? 1 W in this case is going to be 35 divided by 7. Hopefully we remember that it's 5. Okay? You can write the 1 here, but you don't have to. You could also just write W equals 5. It's understood that there's a 1 here. It's kind of extra effort to write the 1, so we don't usually write it. Okay? And the last example is a division question. F divided by 10 equals 5. So that's the operation we're using. We identified the operation, and we need to write the opposite. Times by 10, times by 10, because the opposite of division is multiplication. When we do that, divide by 10 and multiply by 10, we can cancel them out like this, and it gives us just 1F. Again, we don't need to write the 1, but it's understood that there's going to be 1 there. And we do this calculation 5 times 10 to get us to 50. Okay. There's another way you could have written this question, and you will see them written this way in your examples. Okay. And instead of writing F divide by 10 like this, we can write it like this. F with the 10 on the bottom. This and this are the same thing. Okay? And then when we're doing our question, we can write times 10 to the side and times 10 to the side. Maybe if it helps you visualize, these two things cancel each other. F equals 50. Okay, sometimes, most of the time, you'll see it looking like this. All right? So here's 4 examples. These are harder ones with larger numbers. And I want you to copy them in your book and give them a try yourself. Remember these 3 steps. Identify what operation we're using to start with. Write the opposite operation on both sides and then do the calculation. And for these one-step equations, it will work every time. But the next time we learn about kind of the follow-up skill, you'll learn a couple more strategies. So we'll start with that. These are 4 examples for you to try on your own, and I'm going to come around and help you. So good luck.